Hi everyone, it's Viktor and Tsveti speaking. We are back with our regular series in regards to the full moons and the new moons. So now we've got the full moon taking place on the 24th of June at 3 degrees of Capricorn. So we want to shed some light about what it might mean. How are you, Tsveti?
I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to this full moon, to tell you the truth. Finally, some grounding energy after all the eclipses, and something to support the body and the energy at least. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think it will be a very constructive time where we can it's like a checkpoint where we actually see whether what we set as our intention at the new year, for example, when we had the sun in Capricorn, actually came to some fruition now, because the full moon, it's an opposition between the sun and the moon always, and it always gives us some additional information. It sheds some light on things that we didn't notice, and it gives us some additional information because the moon will reflect actually the light of the sun. It doesn't have its own light indeed. So we will actually come to see where we are with our goal setting and maybe readjust and attune ourselves a bit more to them.
Oh yeah, and definitely it highlights the new moon, which happened on the 12th or the 13th of January, depending on where you live, when we had a Capricorn new moon. But also, I would like to mention that definitely this full moon, to a certain extent, is kind of a relief for us, because if you think back, since 2019, we had eclipses happening in Capricorn all over the place. So this full moon also relates to Capricorn-related matters, which started somewhere around the 26th of December 2019. And now, of course, the eclipse season kind of moved to Gemini and Sagittarius period. So overall, definitely a little bit of a relief for us.
Yeah, and not to mention the Saturn Pluto, which were dancing in Capricorn over the last year. So yeah. So it's a nice full moon, definitely.
Well, a little bit better than we had recently. But actually, what I would like to do is I would like to show a picture first. So let me just share my screen for a second, because I do like working with symbol on cards. Basically, I got to know the symbol on cards sometime 20 years ago. This is the type of card which helped me significantly when it comes to understanding some of the aspects, because I'm more like a visual person. So looking at a horoscope sometimes is just, you know, of course I've got the routine now and the scales, but back in the days I was like, okay, there is a square and what. So this is how in the symbol on cards the actual Capricorn moon is depicted or drawn for us. So you see a very beautiful woman actually dressed up quite nicely, but she's an ice queen. And you can see a teardrop rolling down on her eye. And you can even see that her mirror, which is moon, is actually broken. So in my opinion, this full moon is definitely highlighting some of our emotions. Of course, because the sun is in the sign of Capricorn, the sun is in the sign of Cancer, which is all about your what makes you feel secure. And of course, when it comes to the full moon, it's always going to be highlighting issues around, in the sign of Capricorn, integrity, responsibilities, something to do with becoming an adult, basically. But the sun also still says that somehow we need to focus on our inner securities as well. Maybe we need to become a child again. So full moon is always, it's an opposition. So it always talks about balancing things out. So one of the things this full moon, in my opinion, is telling you to make sure that you take a little bit of a time off for yourself as well from your busy schedule, and then focus on your inner security. Feed your soul as well, right? Moon is the soul. Cancer energy is all about feeding the stomach. So putting the right amount of information, food, into your body so that you are ready, you are charged up to take on new challenges. because full moon Capricorn is always highlighting something to do with the ambition part. So who am I going to become? Did I start any type of business in 2019, for instance? Or even in 2021, January? Did I start something which actually I haven't been able to accomplish yet? So this is highlighting those type of opportunities for you, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree that it's very much about work-life balance in a way, because the sun in Cancer will ask us to find some time for our family, for the people we love, where we feel we can feel vulnerable and not be stressed out about it. And at the same time, the moon in Capricorn will ask us not to forget our duties though. And so because it's an opposition, it is very often related to some relationships, also the relationship within us, with ourselves. So it will be definitely a focus on reprioritizing and maybe finding where we can let go of something, also on an emotional level. But as you mentioned, in terms of what we eat, how we gain our energy, it's about the energy balance in our life and where it broke and how we can actually constructively find ways to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as I mentioned, full moon always needs balance. But even though we mentioned that this full moon is very nice, or it has got very positive aspects, but at the same time, it did happen around the summer solstice.
Yeah.
Right? So in ancient astrology, it is said if there is a full moon happening around solstice period, then actually it could bring extreme weather conditions. Now, actually, I posted on my Facebook group asking people what's the weather like where they live, and then they confirmed that when it used to be like 40 degrees, for instance, it's just 22 at the moment. So, or when it's meant to be only 25, it's actually 40 degrees. So there is definitely some weather conditions which we also want to mention here. And let's not forget, Capricorn is all about agriculture. So something to do with the industrial behavior of ours. And that's the reason why Asian people were monitoring the moon phases, because they wanted to make sure that they were actually planting those seeds at the right time so they can have great harvests sometime around September, October time. So definitely when it comes to the agricultural, industrial type of things, maybe this solstice does bring us some element of, you know, extremes, let's put it that way. And also I would like to mention that this moon is in exile, right? So at the end of the day, moon does not enjoy being in the sign of Capricorn, because moon, which is all about looking at your personal needs, and it's very emotional. Now it's more like in a kind of an emotional detached sign, which is not necessarily entirely true though, because Capricorn does have got emotions. It's a feminine sign. However, it contains the emotions. So that's why you saw on that symbol on card as well, that the lady is actually wearing an ice dress. Because she kind of wants a free step distance between her and others. But there is a teardrop rolling down on her eye, which means that actually some of the emotions wants to burst out of her body. Yeah. So, but at the same time, you know, I would like to mention that we've got 4 planets in rulership, and at the same time we've got 4 planets in retrograde as well. So this is very much of a mixed bag here. So the planets which are in rulership are Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, and also we've got a mutual reception by exaltation between Venus and Jupiter as well. So definitely those are strong, and planets in rulership are very important because they are action orientated. They are ready to do something. But then we've got the 4 planets in retrograde, which is talking about, oh, we need to go back and then revisit the past. So this full moon for me is definitely something in regards to revisitation of 2019 at the end of the year or 2021 beginning of the year, but something needs to be revisited.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, also Mercury just turned direct actually from being retrograde. So I think this is a very important thing to mention here, because it is in a trine to Saturn, and Saturn being the ruler of the moon, then it means that again, being retrograde, it went back to Saturn to recommunicate something, to renegotiate terms if you want. And so that we can really have a clear-minded focus and make a decision on something.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Capricorn is very grounding. It's a commitment sign. It is telling you that something which you have to take seriously.
Yeah.
Yes,
and responsibly. Yes.
Absolutely.
And it can be very productive in this sense, because when you are serious and responsible for something, then the production comes indeed. Yeah.
This full moon definitely has got a very strong Saturnian flavor, because as I mentioned, this full moon is happening on 3 degrees, and the 3 degree is actually in an Aquarius Dwad. Now, if someone is not familiar what Dwad is, each sign is broken into 3 groups of 10s. The first 10 is the purest form of the sign, so that's Capricorn. Then the next 10 degrees followed by the next earth sign. In this case, that's going to be Taurus. And the last 10 degree is actually the last of the earth signs or triplicity signs. In this case, it's going to be Virgo. Now, each of those 10 degrees can be broken into 4 little segments, so 2.5. So the first 2.5 is always the purest form of the sign, so that's Capricorn. The next 2.5 degrees followed by the next sign, which is Aquarius. And of course, Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn in traditional astrology. So therefore, even though there is not so much of an aspect going on between Saturn and Moon, not a major aspect. However, it is still highlighting the Saturn-Uranus square, which just got recently again active. And it's going to be active till mid-August, really, till the end of the August.
And good that you mentioned this lack of aspect between Saturn and Moon, a major aspect, I mean, because what I noticed in the chart of the full moon when I looked at it, there is a novile happening between Moon and Saturn, and then between Saturn and Neptune, and a binovile between Moon and Neptune. So these 3 planets are actually quite involved with each other in a very and they're actually, the novile aspect is asking us to integrate the energy of the planets which are involved in the aspect, which is Moon. In, for example, when we have the Moon and Saturn in the novile, this will prompt us, ask us to learn to be more patient and maybe to express and to integrate our emotions in a more constructive and a more disciplined way, but still remain emotional. And the picture that you showed earlier in our talk, it's very descriptive, I think, and regarding what we need to work on. And yeah.
Can you just speak about this novile? So what degree is that? So in case someone doesn't know, what aspect is that?
Sure. A novile aspect is a 40-degree aspect. So we have exactly 40 degrees between Moon and Saturn, and exactly 40 degrees between Saturn and Neptune. And then a binovile will be 2 times 40, which is 80 degrees. And it will actually have the same qualities. A trinovile is a trine. So a novile and a binovile is actually a beginning of an energy which will be expressing itself during the trine aspect, I think. So yeah, I hope that's clear enough in terms of technical.
Yeah, I mean, novile is actually associated with number 9. So it's kind of like a 9th house energy, and it really talks about the meaning to life, searching truth. what exactly we want to become in this incarnation, what is our aspiration, how we want to be connecting with the divine power. So Novael could actually, Novael has got some type of Jupiterian qualities. So it talks about an element of growth. But in traditional astrology, actually, or Vedic astrology especially, the Novael is looked at as a marriage related energy. So it's something to do with the soulmate connection. Now, what's interesting about the full moon is that, of course, it's an opposition. So that also talks about marriage proposals and marriage contract and marital type of status, really. So yeah, absolutely, this full moon can talk about those type of things also. But I usually, you know, when there is a Capricorn full moon, I think it's very much about getting in touch with reality, gaining some type of clarity, my relationship with others or my relationship with the society, figuring out what we want to do with our time. Do we have actually realistic limits, or do we need some type of boundaries? And you mentioned that there is that binovial aspect between the moon and Neptune. So of course that might pull us away from our boundaries. So this could really talk about that life is getting a little bit easier probably, but maybe there is a storm. What was the saying in English? It's calm before a storm comes, or something like that. Yeah. So, and maybe that's the reason why we've got 4 planets in rulership and 3.5 planets in retrograde period, not to forget what was going on in the past as well.
Yes, because Saturn rules the past, of course, and also not to forget that any hardship that comes has divine meaning, because it's also together with Neptune. So whatever happens now, we need to be diligent, to really be resilient, and to integrate whatever happens within us, and to be strong and not to give up, which will be like Saturn's discipline, and not to forget the future. But because Saturn is also in Aquarius, what do we want? Not to forget the past, but because Saturn is in Aquarius, what do we want to build in the future? So our behavior today has consequences for tomorrow. So it's like being able to set the basis now for what we want to be in the future. And there is a saying, I don't remember where I read it and who said it. I know it's someone popular, but it's like, if you want to see your future, look at you now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a kind of this kind of energy.
And I think this Capricorn full moon really highlights that. So, you know, this full moon does have loads of air quality, because there is a trine from Mercury and North Node to Saturn. As I mentioned, the full moon is in an Aquarius dwad. And what's interesting is that the full moon is happening in the sign of Capricorn, which is an earth element. Now the earth and the air kind of never meet. Yeah. So the air is kind of always above the earth, kind of resonating, right? And the earth signs are all about stability. So it's very hard to actually combine them. So it definitely, this full moon is all about, do we have some realistic goals? Are we planning? Or are we just talking about things and then we are a little bit like a Bohemian Rhapsody type of things, going, you know, with the flow type of energy, what the air signs actually tend to be doing. And this Saturn is going to be having an opposition to Mars. Yeah. Which is going to happen
on the 1st of July, I think.
Right? Yeah, 1st of July. So Mars is very excited, and then Saturn is actually slows things down. So we might be very happy at the moment what is going on, and we want to be mastering things, especially probably around freedom with those air qualities. But let's see what that Mars opposition to Saturn brings, and maybe Saturn is going to slow down those excitements. But also it could talk about that I'm getting pushed by hierarchy figures, and it's making me frustrated. So, and then I need to be clear about what is actually happening. And it can be at your work, it can be at in your relationship. So that Saturn is very much about growing a backbone, really. Not allowing anyone to be misleading us, Neptune being novile to Moon, but actually getting some clarity around what is going on in our life. And of course, Mars is like the gas pedal in the chart, right? So it wants to be as fast as possible with that car. And then Saturn brings, Saturn is the brake, right? So it's like driving the car with pushing the two pedals at the same time. Well, eventually it's kind of gonna blow out because the car won't be able to maintain that. Of course, Saturn is slightly bit stronger than Mars, but Mars is very proud. It is in the sign of Leo, so it would never give up. If someone is interested in Mars in Leo and how it might affect us, then I made a video on my channel about that. So feel free to check that out.
Yeah, and also actually this Mars making being the apex of a T-square between Saturn and Uranus, it will again highlight the energy of this square, which is following us through the whole year, indeed. And we just had the second square, which is like again a checkpoint to see, it's like a follow-up on what happened the first time, and see where we are now, how we regard authority figures, where we are pushed to do things we don't really like to do. And this Mars can be actually the additional pressure in the pressure cooker, which might make the lid to explode a little bit. So it can cause some really even extreme situations, I think, because Mars in Leo, as you mentioned, it's very proud. And for this reason, it can be very emotional as well, and not really, it can be very reactive, not so emotional, but very reactive. When you touch the pride, then it's about my authority versus others' authorities. And it can act out of pride, and it might not be the most reasonable thing to do, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on top of my head, yeah, I'm sure actually Moon is out of bound as well at the moment. So that might be again telling me that this Moon can go to the extremes, and the Moon is, when it's out of bound, it is acting like a Uranus conjunction to Moon. So it's a very rebellious Moon. Yeah. So this full Moon might be speaking about being a little bit extra cautious when it comes to our social responsibilities and personal responsibilities as well. And Saturn says that we need to kind of grow up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like to mention that this Saturn-Uranus square getting activated by Mars, I think it's a very volatile period for the stock market. So I recommend people to watch out and give us feedback on that. I usually say when I give advice about these financial matters, I want to put the disclaimer out there. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not registered as one. This is just astrological cycles I look at. But when a planet goes out of bound, plus when there is a Saturn-Uranus square getting activated by a volatile planet, it usually goes to the rock bottom. So, but eventually it's a good news as well, because it's good for investments. That's when we can buy things. And if you think about what Capricorn and Saturn kind of represent, someone who is climbing the mountain, right? And then eventually it goes back to the top as well. So, there is no worse than reaching the rock bottom, and then, it can't go any lower, basically. That's what it's talking about. So there could be some type of financial recklessness in the world. Of course, don't forget that Uranus is still in the sign of Taurus as well. And the focal point of the T-square, as Tsveti mentioned, is Uranus this time around.
Yeah, and it's in Taurus. So as you mentioned, it's all about financials indeed.
Yeah. Okay, and also, because Saturn rules this full moon, Saturn has got a very exact sextile to Chiron, exactly on the same day, on the 24th. So how do you feel about that energy?
Well, I feel that this Chiron will be very important again to somehow balance out and to support the square between Saturn and Uranus, because Chiron is actually moving between these two planets, and actually it's the missing connection, so to say, between the visible and invisible. And because Saturn is a social planet again, it will give us probably some additional information in regards to where we need to head now, where we need to wait, and where we need to act, when exactly. And yeah, I think that this Chiron in this sense will be very important with the trine. And because it's a trine, of course, it is very harmonious energy, so it will be we will be able to see it in an easy flow way, and we will be supported, so to say.
Yeah, so if we are speaking about optimism and you know, and the positive side of this full moon, then we should also mention that we've got a sextile with Jupiter as well.
Yeah.
So definitely that's something we want to speak about. But before actually we do that, I wanted to mention that I feel like the Saturn and the Chiron sextile, by the way, it's a very important aspect in 2021 because it happens 3 times. And this is actually the second one this time around. So astrologically speaking, this is definitely the biggest week, biggest day of the week with this full moon and the exact sextile between Saturn and Chiron. I think it's kind of an antidote. It kind of helps the current Saturn and Uranus square. And this is talking about taking responsibility for our healing, committing to building something, because Chiron is actually like a bridge builder between Saturn and Uranus. And how interesting that actually Chiron is the one which is sextiling Saturn this time around. So the reason why Chiron is a bridge builder between Saturn and Uranus, because Chiron is placed, astronomically speaking, between Saturn and Uranus. So Saturn is the past, Uranus is the future. So Chiron is all about healing the past so we can move forward and see the future, right? So I kind of feel like this cosmic alignment actually is very, very important. And of course, this Chiron really could talk about finding ways for some type of chronic conditions. So this could be very good from a technological point of view, like, I don't know, discovering, for instance, a new technological way to heal something. So it might be very, very useful for the pharmaceutical field, actually. But Chiron is still in the sign of Aries, which talks about our own healing, our own survival instincts. And Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, which talks about healing the society. So it could indicate that if I heal myself, then the society is going to pick up quicker, and then it's going to have a quicker kind of stability coming up.
Yeah, which leads me to this sextile between the moon and Jupiter, actually, because Jupiter is in Pisces, and it gives like this pleasant energy and this forgiving energy towards ourselves, so to say. And because the moon in Capricorn can be really very hard on itself. So this Jupiter being in a sextile will actually soften it a little bit, and it will make it a little bit more agreeable, or a little bit more tolerant, and somehow more forgiving when it comes to some mistakes that we made, so that we can be, you know, we can just see what happened and move on in a way.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's full of optimism and a kind of like a fortunate period of time. But, you know, it could indicate that we do need to be a little bit careful, because as I mentioned, we do have got a mutual reception between Jupiter and Venus, but Venus on the very same day is actually opposing Pluto. So how do you feel about that Venus opposition to Pluto?
Well, Venus-Pluto opposition, it's all about testing the environment to see what really is stable and can stay in the long run. And Venus-Pluto actually will be testing things, but I think that because it's an opposition, it can, you know, manifest in our relationships as well a lot. And Venus-Pluto will actually know the price, by the way, because Pluto can be very obsessive. It can go to extremes, and it can go to, you know, trying out things to their extremes. So it can be a warning sign to really try and stay more moderate, if possible, and, you know, keep our middle grounds.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a very, like, it increases intensity, surely. And it might bring up some very uncomfortable feelings as well. We can become jealous, envy. We can have distrust with others, with the society, kind of losing the trust element to it. We can feel a little bit dark and kind of like oppressive feelings there. So,
like a hostage. We can feel like a hostage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always hostage situations, surely. And also, of course, Venus wants to have pleasure and it wants to have fun. And Pluto is kind of pulling you back into the darkness. So definitely that's also a little bit of a challenge. And the very last aspect, I think, which we might need to mention, because you mentioned the Moon and Neptune being novile, but the following day, Neptune is stationing retrograde. By the way, I also made quite an intense video on that, what I feel about the Neptune retrograde. So if you are interested in that, just check out my YouTube channel. It's gonna go online today, actually. So how do you feel about Neptune stationing retrograde, just very briefly?
Neptune is in rulership, it's in Pisces, so, and it's all about the divine connection between things, and it's like when it stations retrograde, we will be prompted to see how we are related with each other and to somehow remember about our connection with higher forces, and maybe like put more trust and more not so much trust, but like check our beliefs and see where we are with them, and put more trust into the universe, into the divine plan, if we can say so, and see where we might have had illusions about things, and maybe work on them through prayer or through meditation. It can be, because Neptune is in Pisces, and see where we need to change so that we can move on.
I like Neptune retrograde, actually, because it kind of strips away the illusion a little bit. So we can get in touch with reality a little bit more. And of course, that's exactly what the full moon in Capricorn also highlights, the reality. So when it comes to your personal experiences, so maybe a couple of questions as kind of like a summary for you. So what do you want to do with your own time? Can you set up some realistic goals for yourself? Are you clear about the borders and your own limits? Are you ready to do a little bit less and revisiting some bits and bobs which might not be serving you anymore, or it's actually outdated? What are your plans for the future? Say yes to the new ones and kind of welcome them. Or do you actually allow someone to kind of take over and overshadow you, or will you actually push that back? So I feel like these are the major questions for...
And also because Neptune is about spirituality and our ideals, somehow it can also push us to explore how we can serve others unconditionally. What can we do for others, and like be more practical in a way, if possible, with Neptune. But as you said, being more grounded and seeing more realistic ways to achieve that, and also at the same time serving others, but what feels in alignment with myself, with my inner self. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this full moon session. I hope you have enjoyed it. And then if you would like to have a reading with Tsveti or myself, then you will find the link in the description box. So feel free to click on that and book a reading with us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.